Hello everyone, I just wanted to give you a little tutorial on this Seismic Intensity Map lab to give you a better understanding of what a seismic intensity map is and then how to go about completing this assignment. So first off, a seismic intensity map is a map that shows what the shaking was like and what the damage was done based on the Mercalli scale rating in each of the areas around the earthquake epicenter. I have a couple of examples of seismic intensity maps here. The 1925 Santa Barbara earthquake here on the left, noting that in these areas, scientists went out and surveyed the areas for damage and also the people for what they felt. And they assigned each area then a Mercalli rating. And wherever they took data, they were able to mark down that data. And the same thing for the 1886 South Carolina earthquake, which you see right here. The modified Mercalli scale rating is here. Isoseismo lines drawn in between each of the seismic shaking zones. And then noting that different zones in different areas, but nonetheless, it tells us all about the shaking. So what I'm going to do is give you an example earthquake today. The example earthquake is for Durango, Colorado. And in Durango, Colorado, and I gave you a map to show you this, in Durango, Colorado here, there is an earthquake nearby. And scientists went out, surveyed the damage, asked people what they felt, and they gave a report. And the report on all the damages from the areas, they surveyed and asked people in 20 locations. They're listed all through here. Cortez, Colorado, an area around U.S. Highway 160 directly between Durango and Pagosa Springs, etc. And you can find all these different areas on the map here on the back of this lab. So what they did was they went and they cataloged the damages and what people felt and observed, and they listed it next to each town. What you're going to be required to do is to take each one of these scenarios and try to match it up with their Mercalli scale rating. And what you're going to find is that the specific observations and damage, the things that people report as damage are going to match up with things on this intensity scale. Okay, so for example, Cortez, Colorado, windows, doors, and rush hour traffic received a rattling during this earthquake. Most of the city's residents felt the quake and some were awakened by afternoon naps. A gentleman reported that it sounded like a truck ran into the building. So when you come over here, Mercalli scale of 1 says not felt. So it couldn't be that one. Felt only by a few people? Nope. Felt noticeably indoors? Maybe. But it seems like it was a little more intense. This next one says feels like a heavy truck striking the building. The number 3 on the Mercalli says vibrations felt like truck passing by, but this gentleman reported that it felt like a truck hit the building. So that would clearly be a Mercalli scale rating of 4 for Cortez, Colorado. Okay, you go through and you'll find clues in each one of these to tell you what kind of Mercalli rating you're dealing with. Okay, so I went through and did some of them. As you can see here, I've written down some of those. On the back, I went ahead and plotted the ones that I found. So for each one of these locations, there's a corresponding location on the map. For example, Cortez, Colorado is right here on the map. And so Cortez, Colorado is right here. So you would put whatever your Mercalli rating is right there by Cortez. Okay. For Cortez, Colorado, we just decided that it was a heavy truck striking the building, so it was a 4. So I'm going to put Mercalli scale rating of IV or 4 into Cortez, Colorado, and then back here on the map, I'm going to put an IV next to Cortez on the map. Okay. Eventually, you're going to put all of the different Mercalli scale ratings on the map. Okay. And as I said, I went through and did a few of these so that I could give you an idea of what it's like, okay? So here's the ones that I did. I went through, and the IV we just talked about. The next one's a VIII, which is an 8. This is a 2. An IX is a 9. An X is a 10. A VII is a 7. An I is a 1. A VI is a 6. And then this one, it says not felt. Up here I say, if the earthquake was not felt, just put a 0 in the blank. So I put a 0 right there. So those are some examples of how this works. And then once I take all those locations and put these all on the map, okay, here's what I get, okay? I have Roman numerals here for each of the areas on the map, and each of those locations I went ahead and wrote in the Roman numerals that were on the information sheet. The instructions here tell you to put a circle around all that are X, XI, or XX, or sorry, XII. These are the strongest felt areas. And it turns out that the largest I had in my example was X. So I put a circle around that X, and I color in that circle red. The next circle it wants you to draw is anything from VII, or 8, to IX, which is 9. And I note that I have an IX here and a VII here. So I'm going to draw not only the stuff that was X, but also the IX and the VII here. I'm going to put it all in a circle together, and I'm going to color the stuff that's not already colored red orange, and that's going to be the orange zone. And then the next one is yellow, and anything that's V to VII is yellow. So notice I have a VII and a VI here. You're going to have more of these to give a more accurate circle. I just used it based on these two. I encompass all my orange and reds along with the VI and the VII, and I put a circle around that, and then I color the area around that. Again, you see 10 on this map. I should see 20 locations labeled on your map, and the zones of red, orange, yellow, green, and blue on your map as well. And it should end up looking like a bullseye like you see here. All right? So, seismic intensity maps show us how much shaking occurs and how much damage is done. It's given by the Mercalli scale ratings for the particular areas. Scientists will survey several areas and get the overall information from each area, assign it a Mercalli scale rating, and then they'll plot it on the map and draw in their seismic shaking zones. So this map ends up looking like one of these maps in the end. So this is seismic intensity, damages done, things felt by the earthquake, and a map showing the zones. So thanks for watching the tutorial. Hopefully this will help you do a better job with this lab, and please don't hesitate to email me with questions.